uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. I cover weather manipulation, geoengineering, and all those types of things on this channel. I recently talked about just the abnormal weather conditions that we're seeing, the tornadoes just popping up all over the place. And this article just popped up on CNN, which is just the more social engineering, more conditioning. What it does is it just prepares people when this stuff happens, for when it happens, to just be like, oh yeah, it's normal, by hearing about it in advance, because they know a lot of people are waking up and questioning the weather because there's too much information out there that shows us that they can control and manipulate weather, from HAARP, from JFK talking about it, from Disney talking about it, from the government talking about it, from government officials talking about having the capability to weaponize weather. That what they need to do is in advance do stuff like this, so that when abnormal weather patterns develop, which they have planned out, people will go, well, experts predicted it in advance. And that's what this whole article is. Hurricane season is here. Brace yourself for up to 4 major storms in the Atlantic. Weather season starts, just so you know, hurricane season starts and runs through November 30th. So they're predicting 4 major storms between now and November 30th. How would they know? The storms haven't even developed yet, right? We know that there's going to be a hurricane on September 2nd, right over Florida. How would you know? How? And the article is just so contradicting. It says forecasters may not be expecting a severe hurricane season this year, but a few major storms could still threaten the Atlantic coast. Also, they're not expecting a severe hurricane season this year, but the headline says, brace yourself for up to 4 major storms in the Atlantic. I mean, really? The Atlantic hurricane season officially kicks off Saturday, even after subtropical storm Andrea briefly spun up near Bermuda last week and will run through November 30th. The nation's top hurricane forecasters have predicted a near normal season with a lot of storms, 9 to 15 named storms. So they've already decided that they're going to name these storms, which haven't even formed yet, which just shows you how ridiculous this is. But this is seed planning. This is how it works, right? We don't know if there's going to be hurricane. I mean, this is one of those other things too, nobody thinks about. When these storms come, they've always got a name, right? It's like, who's picking the name? They're sitting down and saying, they pre-pick this stuff because they know when they're going to come. 9 to 15 named storms. How would they know? What if there's no storms? Right? Well, of course there will be. How do we know that? Well, not only because of the predictive programming, but we know this has been on their agenda. That's why the weather has been so out of control with destroying Texas, with what we've seen, in New Jersey, Florida, obviously Katrina over the years. This is what they do. They can weaponize these things. So when people talk about population control and destroying people's lives and all this type of stuff, they immediately think of the propaganda that they've seen in movies where the government's going to roll down a street with a military tank, and attack people like it's, World War II or something. People don't realize that this is how they do stuff, through silent warfare, weaponized weather, geoengineering, through poisoning us through the skies with chemtrails, the poison in our food, the fluoride in our water, right? The diseases that they create, the airborne diseases that they create. At Plum Island, which I've talked about very early on in my channel, which I still like to mention, Plum Island, where they actually put diseases in, bugs like ticks and mosquitoes, and that's how they create Lyme's disease and all this stuff. So they're constantly doing stuff that they know people won't question, that they'll just go, oh, it's Mother Nature taking its course, or they'll blame it on God, right? Say, how could God do this to people? So they're predicting 4 major storms, 9 to 15 named storms, including 4 to 8 hurricanes. So now 4 to 8 hurricanes. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, said the season will likely be as violent as last year's above-average season, when hurricanes Florence and Michael slammed the U.S., killing nearly 100 people and causing billions of dollars in damage. But they are warning that 2 to 4 hurricanes could still grow to Category 3 or stronger. Those storms carries winds of 111 to 130 miles per hour. How would they know? I mean, this is the basic question you have to ask. You have to be, a rocket scientist to look at this. Anybody, the dumbest person you know should be able to look at this and go, how would they know? Right? Then couldn't they tell us that there's going to be rain in the forecast in 30 days from now? I mean, they don't even get the storms right where they tell you, well, rain's expected Friday, and Friday comes and it doesn't rain, or these snowstorms that always miss. They just happen to know we're going to get 4 to 8, but definitely 4. We're going to name 9 to 15. They said this is going to be a lot of activity. I'm laughing because it's like, first they say at the top that 4 major storms are coming to the Atlantic. Then they say forecasters are not expecting a severe hurricane season this year. Then they go back and they say there's still a lot of activity. We're expecting a near normal season, but regardless, that's a lot of activity, and you still need to prepare for the hurricane season now. Then they're saying they've named 15 storms already. And they've already picked the names out. They give you the names. So this is, what do we call this? This is sigil magic. This is predictive programming, right? Telling you in advance of what's going to happen and what they're going to do. This is how magic works. This is how they get power over these queer spells that they put on people. One's called Barry, right? For Barry Obama, probably. Chantel, Dorian, Erin, Fernand, Gabrielle, right? It's almost like, obviously, they've picked the names for the specific countries, right? You think they're going to send, here's one of them, Jerry. Is Hurricane Jerry going to be going to China or the Caribbean? Or you think, Hurricane Lorenzo or Fernandez? I mean, they know exactly strategically what they're going to do with all this stuff. So the names, again, Erin, Fernand, Gabrielle, Humberto, Imelda, Jerry, it's funny, Karen, Lorenzo, Melissa, Nestor, Olga, Pablo, Rebecca, Sebastian, Tanya, Van, and Wendy. Hurricane Wendy. And it says, would a hurricane hit the U.S.? While the forecast does not specifically predict where the storms might strike. I mean, then how do you guess this stuff if you can't tell us where it's going to strike? Well, I mean, what in the world is this? Weather officials are urging all U.S. coastal residents to prepare for a tropical storm or hurricane because the past 2 years have been devastating. 2017, Hurricane Harvey, Irma, and Maria put a dramatic end to a 12-year period with no major hurricane landfalls in the U.S. Millions of people in Texas, Louisiana, Southwest Florida, North Carolina, and Puerto Rico are still reeling from it. A fourth storm, Hurricane Nate, also made U.S. landfall. And they say last year, Florence arrived during the season's peak to pummel the Carolinas. Then Hurricane Michael slammed the Florida Panhandle with frightening fury and later socked Virginia, the Carolinas, and Georgia. So they're letting you know in advance, folks. This is how magic works. Listen, to me, the fact that some of the funnier stuff when people, like, I don't care if people make fun of my channel, and obviously when you talk about this type of stuff, the dummies can't comprehend it, so they think it's like real funny. The millennials, they're like, look at these idiots. They're like nerds sitting there playing Nintendo all day with their thumbs up their rear end. And they're like, they think they can control the weather. It's like they don't even think about the technology that they have in their hand with their cell phone and what these people are capable of doing. But they only believe in the technology that they tell you about openly on the news, right? That they only believe that exists, that they can't do anything other than that the CIA wouldn't have any other types of weapons. Even though JFK's talked about in the 60s weaponizing weather, they still talk about weaponizing weather in government. I mean, I put the last video I put out with the C-SPAN clips. Disney talks about it. Oh, we're going to use, in the future, Disney hand in hand with Central Intelligence, same difference. And, in the future, we're going to be able to use technology to push storms away. So people hear that, they're like, that's great, right? So they'll probably tell us that soon. They'll be like, yeah, right. They'll tell us they can push a few away, and then a few huge ones will come. They're like, it's too powerful, we couldn't control it. And they'll destroy half the East Coast and half the West Coast. Ridiculous. But again, the people are so naive because they only believe what they're told. They only see what they see on that magical box, whether it's their computer, their phone, or their television. And until they hear, anything else, they're just going to believe what they're told. So the government's going to continue to be able to do stuff like this, and people are just going to go, Illuminati, conspiracy theory, trigger words. When they openly tell you that they can control the weather. So this is them telling you, in advance, you can expect 4 major hurricanes. No evidence or anything why. Somebody, I guess, just has a crystal ball, which, literally, they do have a crystal ball, right? But from the standpoint of somebody out there who's dead asleep, wouldn't you just be like, well, what's the evidence? How can they show us how they're predicting this stuff? Well, they're going off of the account of what? Of what? because there was some last year, or the fact that they know and they're trying to prepare people so that they aren't getting overly suspicious of the weather, because they've seen recently with what they're doing across the country with these tornadoes and these storms, people are waking up, they're looking this stuff up going, is this abnormal? Right? How many of these storms, come per year? When's the last time this place got hit with this many storms? And then they stumble upon geoengineering, weather manipulation, weather control, HARP, and suddenly they wake up. So they want to put this stuff out there in advance and be like, oh, crazy people are saying, that's coming out next, after the next big storm. They'll put out a thing going, oh, these crazy conspiracy people are saying that we can control the weather based off of something that JFK mentioned in the 60s, and oh, there's no proof of any of this stuff. HARP is just there, it's nothing to do with the weather and mind control. No, give me a break. Thank you for listening to today's show. God bless all of you and your family.